Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Percy. How's weather graphic? The only place that has advisory out is the greater Anchorage area, dense fog advisory for visibility is quarter mile at times in dense fog. And that's out until noon tomorrow, at least at this point in time, so through tonight and through tomorrow morning. And then the fog advisory is over the Copper River Basin area and into western Prince William Sound. Those end at 9 p.m. this evening, and so I didn't bother illuminating them. Otherwise, no watches, warnings, or advisories anywhere else in the state, probably through the weekend. And for tonight, today, satellite imagery showing some loose moisture here slipping on up into the southeast coast with some mid and high level clouds all the way up toward White Pass, and then the precipitation producing clouds, and it ain't much, over the southern areas with some light snow. For example, Petersburg picked up about half inch or so of light snow during the day today, while Ketchikan had a third of an inch of actual rainfall. Otherwise, you can see pretty good here for the North Gulf Coast and south central Alaska, again with the dense fog in the Anchorage area. But other areas pretty good. We've got a weak, narrow band right through here, and that's producing light snow, but you can tell it's really falling apart this afternoon. 12-hour precipitation amounts with that. I couldn't really find much of anything with that, so no significant snow there. Another area with an upper level low creating some stratus and light flurries coming out of that as well, but nothing significant, just kind of lower flying conditions. And then moisture coming into the Russian Far East. Actually, we've got southeast flow here coming up into the Russian Far East. Then aloft, we've got westerly flow, and that's pulling some light snow into St. Lawrence Island, kicking the winds up 35 gusts, possibly as high as 40 miles an hour in some places there, Savunga and Gamble. And then this band here to the north, but back out towards St. Lawrence Island. That'll continue. Actually, the area of snow goes all the way back into this occluded front that brought storm force winds to the western Aleutians. That'll continue today and then begin to subside a little bit tonight along that frontal boundary there near Shemya, with winds anywhere from 40 gusts, 65 miles an hour, and rain out there. Otherwise, high pressure ridging down into the central Aleutians. Light winds, possible clearing, could possibly seen some sunshine out there at AKwx today, and definitely dry, winds light, and not too bad even for the eastern Aleutians. A few more clouds there, but generally dry front Alaska, maybe Nikolsky. Then you pick up some light shower activity with this trough extending into the western Alaska Peninsula, but dry and then gradually clearing out as you get up toward Bristol Bay. Real nice day, Kodiak Island today. Clear skies there, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound area, but Portage holding on to the fog and low clouds as it was northern Cook Inlet. And for the southeast coast here, rain over the southern areas, just a few hundredths of an inch at Craig and Klawock. Again, the heavier amount that I could find in the 12-hour period ending at 3 p.m. this afternoon was at Ketchikan with a third of an inch of precipitation. Again, areas of light snow, maybe an inch in some areas there. Stewart possibly had more, maybe Hyder and Stewart, but really lightening out as you head north of those gusty winds coming out of the channeled areas. Cold air coming out of Canada. So Eldred Rock seeing gusts to 50 miles per hour out of the north. Cape Spencer having northeast winds gusting to 52 miles per hour this afternoon. And even some pretty good outflow winds, Five Finger Lighthouse 35 from the north and then much lighter down to the south there. Otherwise, just the flurries there along the north side of the eastern Alaska Range, 40-mile country, maybe into the central interior, and that narrow band of light flurries and fog with that weakening trough. Had areas of fog along the eastern Arctic coast there with Temperatures generally below zero, except over at Kaktovik, they had some thicker stratus and fog, and they were a little above zero. And for tonight, we'll see that the original disturbance really just washes out. We have upper level low pressure here with a minor reflection at the surface, and areas of light snow. Again, flurries would be more descriptive with areas of fog, maybe some scattered snow showers, upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country down to the north side of the Alaska Range. South of the mountains, though, downsloping winds. You can see pretty gusty across Copper River Basin, so that should end those fog advisories this evening. And gusty outflow winds along the North Gulf Coast, especially the Copper River Delta, and that cold air coming out over the Gulf, picking up moisture and producing some snow or scattered rain and snow showers that'll stay off the coast. One of those could slip off into Kodiak late tonight. Otherwise, good offshore flow, good VFR, Bristol Bay, southwest coast. And then that westerly flow aloft carrying moisture in across St. Lawrence Island, periods of light snow, fog, lower flying conditions, possibly IFR, and that's spreading into western Norton Sound, kind of in between the two areas of high pressure here that's ridging southward, making for a very nice overnight period for the Pribilofs, eastern Aleutians, Adak, and Atka, and the storminess with the storm warnings out over the western Aleutians with a mixture of precipitation. Well, that whole feature weakens. Something slides off to the east here. Lose the gradient, the front narrows, and light precipitation is all expected into Adak and may not even reach Atka. Variable clouds to partly cloudy here for the eastern Aleutians into the Bering Sea. That dry offshore flow keeping it nice. VFR right out to the coastline and beyond. And still maybe an isolated shower or two for the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula. This feed of moisture is starting to cut off now. You know, it's not no longer getting into the Seward Peninsula, starting to taper off. And will continue to do so late tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night. Otherwise, flurries, Central Brooks Range, North Slope out to the Arctic coast. Again, amounts not significant at all. Same thing, eastern interior, north of the Alaska Range with lower flying conditions, marginal VFR for the most part, maybe isolated IFR. And then this low slips on up into the, right off the southwest coast there, right off the west coast of Prince of Wales Island. Strongest winds will stay to the south. You can see the tighter gradient on down to the south, but some light rain and snow on up to the north. Keep the gusty winds here over the channeled areas of central and northern panhandle. And then for Sunday, still some moisture coming up in the southwest flows. That's going to keep it cloudy and damp and unsettled for the southern panhandle. Northern areas variably to mostly cloudy with diminishing winds, diminishing outflow winds as this trough edges northward. And even the gradient slackening up Copper River Basin, North Gulf Coast areas there. Widespread area, clouds, light snow, fog, flurries, especially for the North Slope and the Arctic coast. And mostly clear here across the southern part of the state. Hopefully lots of sunshine. Could still see some patchy fog conditions. Prince William Sound, Cook Inlet, but generally looking really good, especially the southwest coast. Good VFR right on out to the Pribilofs. Maybe a few clouds, Bristol Bay. More gradient here, definitely those easterly winds on the increase for the Aleutians and the Bering Sea and the Aleutians here with a chance of rain and snow from the Alaska Peninsula all the way out to the Komodorskis. Lows for tomorrow morning anywhere from 15 to 30 below over the eastern interior, about 10 to 15 below for the Arctic coast, a little above zero for the southwest interior. Lower 20s for the Pribilofs, lower 30s for the Aleutians, and single numbers for Bristol Bay, south central Alaska, 0 to 10 above, maybe a little below in some areas. Teens at 20s and 30s for the southeast coast. Highs tomorrow, 20s, 30s, and 40s there. Staying below zero, Copper River Basin. Mid-teens, Susitna Valley, Matanuska Valley, northern Cook Inlet. Mid-20s, Kachemak Bay, Homer area. Lower 30s for Kodiak. Well below zero up over the northeast interior. And mid-20s there for Nunivak Island, upper 20s for the Pribilofs, lows the following morning here. A little colder, anywhere from 20 to maybe 30, 35 below if you get the clearing. And even colder you can see into the southwest interior here with falling low below zero in Bristol Bay. 5 below to 10 above for south central Alaska. Teens, Prince William Sound, and no change for the Panhandle. And then your highs for Sunday afternoon. Can see staying below zero through the along the Kuskokwim River Valley on out to the Delta. Mid-teens Nunivak Island and 15 to 25 below for your highs with the coldest areas over the upper Yukon Valley. And 5 to 15 for the highs. South central Alaska, Cook Inlet, milder along the coast, and it looks like 30s to lower 40s for the Panhandle. Kodiak Island, high right around the frost point, and anywhere from 18 at Pilot Point for the Alaska Peninsula to 35 at Sand Point, and then upper 30s for the Central Aleutians, upper 20s for the Pribilofs, and out west mid-30s for the far western Aleutians.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Looking ahead to flying weather for tomorrow morning. Widespread IFR there, central north slope, marginal out to most of the Arctic coast. More IFR here over the eastern interior 40-mile country into the southern upper Yukon Valley here, north of the Alaska Range, VFR to the south. Except starting out, could be some fog, IFR type fog, low stuff Cook Inlet, maybe Prince William Sound, Passage Canal, in those areas. Otherwise, VFR all the way out to the coast into the Bering Sea, marginal for the Aleutians. IFR just south of St. Lawrence Island, and a swath of marginal VFR and across the southeast coast. In the afternoon, that kind of breaks up here and shifts to the south. Actually, moisture coming up from the south creates some IFR over there towards Stewart and Hyder. Good VFR here, Gulf of Alaska, North Gulf Coast, southern Alaska, on up to the northwest there to the Chukchi Sea, including the Seward Peninsula. And IFR a little less, but still hanging over the north slope to the crest of the Brooks Range. A little less here over the eastern interior, and marginal for the Aleutians. And then for Sunday morning, still marginal VFR for the Aleutians, much of the Bering Sea. Alaska Peninsula, some good VFR, Kodiak Island included, all the southwest coast, Bristol Bay, Kuskokwim Valley, up to Norton Sound. South central Alaska, along and north of the Alaska Range, we've got marginal VFR here, all the way up to the eastern Brooks Range. Arctic Village could be IFR, and some more IFR back to the west. And for the Panhandle, IFR toward the eastern border here, especially down to the south. And then for Sunday afternoon, IFR, eastern southeast coast, otherwise marginal VFR up to Cordova, maybe Valdez, Wrangell Mountains here, and into the eastern Copper River Basin. VFR continues, Kodiak Island, Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet, right on up to St. Lawrence Island, and then marginal VFR from the northern Koyukuk, Kobuk, upper Yukon, and Noatak Valleys on out to the Arctic coast. Passes, Anatuvik, IFR, northern approach, otherwise marginal, VFR to the south, and that same pattern also for Adigan, VFR southern entrance, marginal through the pass, and then IFR there in that northern entrance. Lake Clark and Merrill, good VFR tomorrow, rainy VFR, windy VFR. And Isabel, same forecast, VFR from Antasta and Tanita and Portage here. Starting out IFR, much like today, maybe quarter, half mile in fog, and then breaking out to VFR, Chilcoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels late tonight, early tomorrow morning. South of the eastern Aleutians, just barely near Adak and Atka. East side of Kodiak Island, hugging the North Gulf Coast, and then cutting in across the southern Panhandle. And we've got some 2,000 to 4,000 foot freezing levels here from the southern Panhandle to the Queen Charlottes. And for icing, not much really significant anywhere in the state. We have some creeping up from the south here over the southern southeast coast, just isolated moderate rime above 6,000 feet. Maybe a patch, possibly. Not much of a threat at all up here on the north slope of that moisture. And out here to the west could be some isolated moderate, possibly from Adak on out, but not quite reaching Chimay-Attu. Jet stream, good ridging here across Bristol Bay into the northern Bering Sea where the center is. And northwest flow, 40 knots in across the Seward Peninsula down into the Kenai Peninsula here. Upper level low, weak up over the northeast interior. And 90 knots out of the southeast here for the central Aleutians. Otherwise, the main jet well to the south. 9,000 feet, high pressure there just south of the Russian Far East. Northerly flow, 20 to 30 knots here with the southwest interior. Northwest or west-northwest, 20 to 25. Lighter over the eastern side here. A couple of weak lows. Only 15 knots across Cook Inlet. Really light here for the Alaska Peninsula. Southeast 35 increasing to 45 knots out towards Shimya. Light winds and variable conditions here for the southeast coast And then for 3,000 feet, same thing, weak lows, so 5 to 10 or 15 knot winds here, light and variable in the eastern interior, band of northerlies 25 to 30 here for the west side, and westerlies 15 to 20 around that low on the Arctic coast. High pressure out over the Bering Sea, southeast winds 25 to 35, central western Aleutians. Turbulence, occasional moderate chop here. Northeast Bristol Bay, right up, actually from the Aleutian Range here, northward there across Kamishak Bay and Augustine Island, up along the Alaska Range here, with light to isolated moderate chop out to about the Yukon, Kuskokwim Delta areas, but none out along the coast. Some icing here, or turbulence for the Aleutians.
Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining us once again is our good friend Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska. Thanks again for joining us, Eric. We really appreciate it, as always.
Happy to be here, Dave.
Thanks. And, you know, we're going to ask you some more satellite questions here, but, you know,
Okay.
Since you're a regular guest, we're going to give you a riddle this time, kind of a trick start to the show.
Okay.
How do you see a polar bear in a snowstorm?
Sounds like a challenging question because
Okay.
the polar bear is white and the snowstorm's white.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Well, in the world of satellite meteorology, you couldn't, because the spatial resolution of this instrument that we're going to talk about today has 375 meters resolution, and even the most well-fed polar bear will not be 375 meters across.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to run into such a
No, it'd be a
creature,
bad day.
would you? In the satellite meteorology world, the equivalent would be, how do you tell the difference between clouds and then an area that has no clouds but's covered by snow,
Right.
a piece of ocean that has no clouds but has sea ice?
Oh.
All three of these are white. The
Right.
snow, the clouds, the sea ice, it's all white. So how, using satellite data, can you tell someone where the clouds are and where the clear areas are? This is important for aviators. Mariners want to know, in the ocean there, this white stuff, is that sea ice or is that just a cloud?
Right.
How do we tell the difference? And it turns out, if you look, say, at a picture of Alaska from the springtime, March or April, and it's high noon, so we're getting a lot of sunshine. If you were riding on a satellite with your human eye, look down, everything's white.
Right.
And we've got a picture of Alaska from early April, and we're seeing some of the lower elevations in south central Alaska are melting out, getting some brown ground there, but otherwise there's a whole lot of white
Sure.
on the image. What areas are cloudy, but what areas are clear and covered by snow or ice?
Okay.
It turns out that if we leave the visible spectrum behind a little bit, see, a satellite has multiple channels in the electromagnetic spectrum that it can look at.
Oh, okay.
Part of that's visible light, what we
Right.
see as humans, but there's a lot going on at other wavelengths. If we add in something that's called near infrared, what we couldn't quite see, but we're getting into that infrared territory, there's a magical property that we can exploit.
Secrets to find. Okay.
Oh yeah, this is actually powerful and almost magical, that at a slightly longer wavelength, when the sun shines down on Alaska and then it bounces off back to the satellite, at that near infrared wavelength, it turns out that snow and ice will absorb that wavelength, but liquid water, like liquid droplets in a cloud, will reflect it back.
Okay.
And that's not the way it works in visible. You know, visible, it just bounces off of all those targets the same. But at near infrared, snow and ice absorbs it, and the liquid will reflect it back. Liquid cloud droplets will do that.
Okay.
And so an image where everything looks white suddenly becomes colorful.
Oh,
And the way this recipe works is that the clouds look pink, and the snow-covered ground and the ice-covered ocean look blue. Suddenly now, we're able to see the polar bear in the snowstorm. We're able to see where the clouds are and where the snow is and where the ice is. This is a powerful advantage. Consider the case zooming into the Bering Strait area. What if you were asked to brief a pilot who wanted to fly, say, from Kotzebue down to Savunga or Gamble,
Right.
and had to fly VFR, visual flight rules, so they had to stay out of the clouds? Could you use a satellite image where everything is white to provide that pilot any guidance?
Be pretty tricky.
Very tricky. And that's why we have to go to this other recipe where the all-white polar bear in the snowstorm becomes more colorful. And now we can tell the pilot, aha, this is a cloud you want to stay out of, but over here, sure, it looks white in the visible spectrum,
Right.
but what we're doing, we'll show you, oh, this is just snow-covered ground, but it's clear, so you can fly right through there, visual flight rules. Same thing for a mariner who might want to get down to St. Lawrence Island, say, but it has to avoid the sea ice. This product has applicability there as well.
Wonderful.
It's an amazing new technology, so many new channels. The satellite that makes this imagery actually has 22 different channels that it looks at.
22 secret decoder rings.
22 secret decoder rings.
Okay. You know, I liken this to an activity I had in the car when I was growing up. We go on long car rides, and we do all the work in these activity books to, you know, stay calm, cool, and collected for our parents who were trying to get us across the state. But to get the answer, the real answer, you had to apply that red sheet to see the answer or the secret path or whatever the message was in that activity book to get you onto the next page. And it's also like a photography filter, right? If you're taking a lot of pictures, you can apply different colors to see different parts of that image. I mean, that sounds a lot like what you're talking about.
Oh, you know it. The information is in there all along. We just have to combine the channels in a way to reveal what's in there. And by the way, you're dating yourself. So you didn't have an iPad in the back of the car?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, we have, lastly, for dessert, there's a great image of the same kind of recipe. We're looking at South Central Alaska the first week of January. In first week of January, the sun, even at noon, is really low on the horizon, barely up. And in this image, the fun thing is the shadow of Denali. We can see the shadow of Denali over a lower pink cloud deck.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And Denali at 20,000 feet casts a big shadow. So this is another, just for fun, kind of application here. This is called multispectral satellite imagery, and it's the future. And happily, the future is now.
Oh, that is fascinating. And 22 different secrets that can be revealed from just one satellite tool that's floating overhead. Eric, thanks so much for joining us again. We can't wait to have you back and telling us more secrets of satellite technology that are passing over us every single day, many times a day, over Alaska and helping us all the way in many different parts of our lives. So thanks so much for joining us again.
Well, happy to be here.
All right. And thank you for staying with us. We'll be back with a little more weather here in just a few minutes. And of course, we'll have more Alaska weather facts anytime online.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Sea ice out here, continuing to advance slowly westward. In fact, some increasing easterly winds over the next several days over the forecast period could carry the ice edge as much as 35 nautical miles to the west. And coastal water forecast, south coast of the Panhandle here, 15 to 20 knots out of the north 20 for the southern inside waters, northeast 20, 7-foot seas on the north coast. Gale warnings, northern Lynn Canal, north 35 knots, down some from today, and then northeast at 25, gust 40 knots, Stevens Passage. And the outlook for Sunday, signals winds around to the south here for Clarence Strait at 15 knots, west to southwest, pretty light in the south coast, southwest, and also light on the north coast, 7-foot seas, and north 15 there for Lynn Canal. Prince William Sound, north 15 tomorrow with gusts of 25, and gale force gusts here for the eastern North Gulf Coast, just 10 knots out of the north for the west side. Small craft advisories, Barren Islands into Kamishak Bay, northwest 25 to 30, and northeast 10 to 20 for Cook Inlet. Outlook for Sunday, small craft advisories here south of the Forelands right into Kamishak Bay, northeast 25, 7 to 8-foot seas, north 20 for the Barren Islands, northeast 20 knots for the western North Gulf Coast, northeast 15 Prince William Sound, southeast 20 there for the Middleton Island zone, northwest 20 for Shelikof Strait, and north 20 on the east side of Kodiak for tomorrow. Got small craft advisories everywhere else. North winds 25 for Bristol Bay, north 25 Cape Sarachev on up to Sitkinak, and northeast 25 on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula with 9-foot seas. Outlook for Sunday, north to northeast 15 to 20 for Kodiak, east 20 southwest of Sitkinak, Alaska Peninsula, east winds 30 knots, 10 to 11-foot seas, and small craft advisories there for Bristol Bay. Far western Aleutians tomorrow, at least early on, 50 knots southeast winds, seas near 30 feet, gales here to just west of Adak. Probably no farther east than Amchitka, say, give or take. East 25 for the central Aleutians, and then those turn east to east-northeast at 20 to 25 knots for the Fox Islands. Big increase in those winds on Sunday East 40 to 45 knots, so full gales coming into those areas, and seas as high as 26 feet. Northeast 40 to 45 knots for Adak and Atka. Of course, seas higher 20 to 25. Northeast 35 here west of Adak. East 30 knots. Shemya. Southwest coast, small craft advisories, north 25, south of Nunivak Island, northeast 30 for the Pribilofs, otherwise just 15 knots out of the north for St. Matthew Island, but those seas still at 12 feet, northwest 15, north of Nunivak Island, and just 10-knot winds for St. Lawrence Island and Norton Sound. And for Sunday, north 15 in the Sound there, 20 knots for St. Lawrence Island, northeast 20 to mostly 25 knots here along the southwest coast, except northeast, gale force northeasterlies in the forecast of 12-foot seas for the Pribilof Islands. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, east 15. Light and variable to west at 10 on the central coast, turning southwest on the west side. And from Cape Beaufort on down to Wales, looks pretty light and variable. Outlook for Sunday, winds get a little more organized here, northwest 15. Still a breeze though for Wales up to Cape Beaufort. Westerlies at about 10, central and west side to south to variable 5 to 10 for the eastern coastline. And for tonight again, a reflection of an upper level low at the surface here, very weak, just widespread stratus, areas of light snow, flurries, fog, and maybe some scattered snow showers from the eastern Arctic coast all the way down across the east side there, Eagle down to the north side of the eastern Alaska Range, so Tok and Northway. South of the mountain zone, more gradient, clearing skies. Could get a little gusty across areas of Copper River Basin. Outflow winds, North Gulf Coast, and rain and snow, southern Panhandle. More wind and drier to the north, high pressure holding over the eastern Bering Sea. Storms tonight into tomorrow for the western Aleutians. Those probably diminish in the afternoon. The front really weakening, and some light rain possibly reaching Atka, more likely Adak, but it'll be quite light. No change here in the south, dense fog advisory till noon for Anchorage, and dry in the south, and chance of snow in the north for Sunday about sums it up. Temperatures trending downward, again staying below zero all day into the southwest interior. Chance of moisture and unsettled over the Panhandle. Thank you for joining us.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.
Geneva Woods